Liar, liar, pants on fire. Let's talk about the remake of the 1984 Firestarter by Stephen King. This one was written by Scott Teems, who did Halloween Kills, and knowing that, I went in this movie with lower expectations because of that, because Halloween Kills, I'm not a fan of the writing in that movie. And this one was directed by Keith Thomas, who's only had one other horror movie under his belt before this, The Vigil from 2019. Haven't seen it. And this one stars Zac Efron as the new dad of Charlie. And this one has basically the same story as the original. We got a family with a daughter that has pyrokinetic powers. There's a agency, this government facility that wants to capture her and do experiments on her, so they're on the run, and then they get captured and they have to break out. It's very similar to part one, but there's definitely some changes here. And once again, we have a new movie where I have the opposite opinion of most others. Scream came out, everyone was blowing it. It's the best in the series, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's fine. And the more I think about that movie, the more I hate it. Then Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out. Everyone hated it. I loved it. And then X came out, and everyone was blowing it. It's the best slasher since whatever. And to me, it's not even really a slasher. I like X, but I'm not at that level like everyone is. And then this came out, and so far, I know it just came out today, but everything I'm seeing from critics and what it has right now on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb, it seems like, and Letterboxd, it seems like most people are hating this movie, and I really liked it. Jumping into what I like about this movie is, first up, the soundtrack, just like in the original, kicks ass. It's done by John Carpenter, Cody Carpenter, and Daniel Davies, who did Halloween Kills. And John Carpenter was originally supposed to write and direct the original, funny enough, and now he's doing the music for the remake, and it is awesome. Him and his son and Daniel Davies deliver a phenomenal soundtrack. I like that this has a more linear narrative with more focus on the family, more drama, they're more developed, and we get to see Charlie as a baby and then going to school, what her school life is like, how hard it is for her to keep that power suppressed, and there's just a lot more here that we didn't get in the original. There was none of this, really. We got little glimpses of them as a family, but the movie just starts with the mom dead and they're on the run already. And I like that they went with a more older Charlie this time, a couple years older than Drew Barrymore's character was. She's 11 or 12 in this. I think she was 9 or 10 in the original. She seemed pretty young. In this one, she's much more older and she's much more powerful. And it makes sense that she would have these powers that her mom and dad have, seeing as how she's their kid, and they just handed that power down to her. I appreciate that in this one they don't have the dad holding his head to use his power like in the original. I thought that was kind of cheesy. In this one, he just kind of cocks his neck and looks at them and makes them do whatever he wants. And instead of his nose bleeding, his eyes bleed, which is much more creepy. I like that this one is 20 minutes shorter than the original. I didn't like the pace in the original. The second act started to drag. In this one, it's a little leisurely paced, but it's a lot more even of a pace than the original. I liked the way this one moved, and it's less focused on the bad guys. There's not so much of their experiments and then doing the experiments in the third act. It's less focused on them and more focused on Charlie and her dad and her mom in this one. I love the little change they made here where the third act was more of a rescue mission, and I like the addition of the contact lens so that the dad and Charlie, they can't do the mind control stuff. So I thought that was a smart device that they threw in here. And the effects overall looked really good, the CGI and the practical, how they made the rooms look really hot, all the steam, and then the practical effects, the burn effects on people's arms and their face looked pretty gruesome and very realistic. Getting into what I don't like, the new Hollister, the new Martin Sheen of this movie is this woman who I just wasn't really a fan of. Her performance wasn't all that great. She has some really weird dialogue, some of that Scott Teems dialogue from Halloween Kills. she just has some bad dialogue, and I didn't like the performance as much. And she has less personality than Martin Sheen's character did, and she just at the end of the day is another cliche paper thin bad guy. Rainbird is probably the character that a lot of people are gonna hate the most about this movie, and I also don't really like the changes they made here with his character and how his story wraps up at the end, and I don't understand how he found them so fast at their house. I also wish that the third act could have been just as explosive and fun as the original. That's what the original has going for it, is just the explosive, fiery third act where Drew Barrymore is just blowing up helicopters and cars and stopping bullets and sending dozens of fireballs everywhere. You get a much smaller scale version of that in this one, unfortunately, but it still looks good. You get a few people lit on fire, and I mean, she's burning people down to ashes in this, and she does throw one fireball, but it just needed to be bigger. With a facility like this big, there should have been more people in there for her to kill. And they also missed an opportunity, I feel, for there to be like a big riot. Like, this is a place that is supposed to have like all these other people prisoner that they're doing experiments on, right? But we don't see anybody else there. And granted, we don't in the original either when she's doing that shit at the end. We don't see anyone else there. But in this one, they make her like open up all these doors where you would think like they're cells, right? They're supposed to be where people are being held. So I thought that there should have been like other people like her or like her dad, other people with powers that get loose and start fighting back or something. Like, that was a missed opportunity to make this a bigger, more fun finale. And also, just like in the original, I feel like this one character's death, I'll try not to spoil it, but if you've seen the original, you know what I'm talking about. There's one character's death in this movie, in the original, that just seemed so avoidable to me. So, final thoughts: this is a more dramatic, leisurely paced remake with a linear narrative, a more powerful Charlie, and thankfully, a shorter runtime. I appreciate the fact that they changed some things up in here. It's not 100% identical to the original. They insert some new ideas here, and for me, most of them work. So don't let the negative reviews prevent you from seeing this in the theater. When it comes to Firestarter 2022, it's not perfect. It has some writing issues, but at the end of the day, it's enjoyable. I'm giving it 4 out of 5 stars. All right, time for some spoilers. So in the opening, we get to see Charlie as a baby in a crib, lighting the toys hanging above her on fire. All the Lot 6 experiments, them going in to test this drug out and all that stuff from the original, that's all just in the opening credits, which I thought was kind of cool. They don't spend too much time on it. They just get to the family stuff, then with Charlie. And I like that the dad is using his power to help people with drug addiction. He's charging them like $100 per session, but they just keep coming back to him, and he'll make them forget about cigarettes and drugs or whatever it may be for a little while, and then they come back for more hypnosis from him. Like, he's just making them quit drugs for a little bit. And so I thought that was an interesting idea they threw in here. And he bleeds out his eyes instead of his nose. And Rainbird in this one is actually an indigenous American, but in real life he's a Canadian actor. But in George C. Scott in the original, I don't think he's actually Native American. This guy really is. And he has powers. In the original, again, like, what was different there was he had no powers. He was just a hitman who, for some reason, thought he could get Charlie's powers by killing her. I never understood that. But in this one, he already has powers. He used to be a guinea pig at that facility also. Some other changes they made here is Charlie no longer says back off. She just talks about things that she sees around her, paper, pencil, and to distract her mind. And this time she burns her mom's arms without oven mitts on, so she gets some pretty nasty burns on her forearms. We get to see Charlie kill a cat now, and instantly she feels remorse, but the cat scratched her, and it was just an instant reaction. She burns it, but it's still alive and complete agony, and then she has to put it out of its misery. I liked the callback to the original where the dad makes the $1 bill look like a $100 bill instead of a $500 bill. But you would think that he would have plenty of $100 bills on him, seeing as how he's charging all these people $100 per session, cash only. I kind of like the change they made with the farmer and his wife. In this one, the farmer's wife is paralyzed from a car accident that he caused. He was the driver, and now she's like on life support. She can't even talk, and he's been living with this guilt for decades. He lost the son also, and Charlie, with her power, is able to like read her mind and can tell him that she forgives him for what he did decades before. So I liked all that dramatic stuff they threw in here. I thought all that stuff was pretty cool. I liked the joke they threw in that scene also with the farmer, how that you can't trust the news. He's like, the news said that you're a murderer, and Zac Efron's like, yeah, shocker, they lied. So in this movie, the dad gets captured at the farmhouse by Rainbird, not the lake house. We don't ever get to go to a lake house in this one. And Charlie escapes, and she's living on her own in the woods, eating berries, lighting fires to stay warm. And then she has like this Terminator moment where she goes up to these kids and she's like, I like your bike, give me your clothes. It felt very much like Terminator 2, and I guess Terminator 1 also, but in Terminator 2, he steals the bike. So she should have like grabbed shades at some point and threw them on. Then she burns this guy in his car, like half his body is melted. That looked pretty awesome. That's the best like burn effects in the film. That looked pretty gnarly. Then she gets to her dad, and in this one, the dad uses his power to make her burn it all down. And in the original, he gets shot in the neck because of his stupid decision, and then tells her to burn it all down, but he's not using his power in the original. I don't think. They don't make it seem like it. He's just telling her, like, all right, it's okay, use your power, burn it all down. But in this one, we see that he's using his power to make her burn it all down. And he's like, kill me. Even though she just got there to save him, now she's being made to kill the person that she went there to save. And I feel like this could have been avoidable. Seeing how powerful she is, she can open up all these doors with her mind. Like she's so damn powerful. She can, light people's heads on fire. She could have just did that to the chick that was sitting right next to him. Like, you burn me, you burn him. Like, she could have just lit her hair on fire, and she just would have ran around the room screaming and wailing. Like, she could have saved her dad, I'm sure. And this is when the movie should have kicked things up a notch. Like, we get to see some of her powers being used here, but we don't get as much as I would have wanted. This sequence only goes on like 2 minutes, and it should have been a couple minutes longer. Like, we see her set 3 guards' heads on fire. She burns this one girl down to nothing but ash. And, she says, liar, liar, pants on fire. She uses the mind control to make these 2 guards shoot each other. Meanwhile, Rainbird's kicking some guards' asses, and then she bumps into Rainbird. He saves her from these other guys, and then she forgives him. And they just walk out of there together. And then they just live happily ever after together. She never goes back to the people on the farm to live with them. She never goes to the New York Times like in the original, and no bullets does she ever stop in this one. She never gets fired at ever. In the original, she was stopping bullets left and right. She never gets shot at once in this one. But yeah, like, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Like, I guess it's just here to show that she's not a monster. Like, she's still got some morals. She's not going to kill everybody, so she forgives Rainbird for helping get her there, because that's kind of like the little twist in here, that it wasn't the dad giving her visions or talking to her in her mind, telling her to get there. It was Rainbird sending her that vision of the building and telling her where to go. So he was helping her to rescue her dad, but that didn't work out. He still died. And then she forgives him and they walk off together, even though he killed her mom. And that's the thing. Like, if they would have written it to where someone else killed the mom, I could be more on board with this ending. Like, yeah, go live with him. He can be like your new father figure. But he killed her mom, strangled her. So it's like, nah, fuck this guy. Like, I don't like him. Yeah, he helped you get there to save your dad. And you didn't really save him, though. But he's still like a bad guy in my eyes. I just don't forgive easily, I guess. So I don't forgive him. He should be dead. So that's the end of Firestarter. What are your thoughts on this remake? Do you like it? Or do you like it more than the original? Just as much? Less? Let me know. Let me know why in the comments below. And as always, if you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And remember, it's all an opinion. You don't need to get butthurt about it.